Hi there, it's day 84 of our Through the Bible in 1 Year, and we are on Joshua. He just fought the Battle of Jericho yesterday, and the walls came tumbling down. So let's jump over there, and we'll, today, 9 through 11, okay? The Gibeonites saved themselves by trickery. Oh. When all the kings who were beyond the Jordan in the hill country and in the lowland along the coast of the great sea toward Lebanon, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, heard of this, they gathered together in one accord to fight Joshua and Israel. An alliance. But the inhabitants of Gibeon heard what Joshua had done in Jericho, and to Ai. They on their part acted with cunning and went and made ready provisions and took worn-out sacks upon their asses, and wineskins, worn out and torn and mended, with worn-out patched sandals on their feet, and worn-out clothes on their and all their provisions were dry and moldy. And then they went to Joshua in the camp at Gilgal and said to him and the men of Israel, "We have come from a far country, so now make a covenant with us." But the men of Israel said to the Hivites, "Perhaps you live among us, and how can we make a covenant with you?" They said to Joshua, "We are your servants." And Joshua said to them, "Who are you, and where do you come from?" They said to him, "From a very far country your servants have come, because of the name of the Lord your God, for we have heard a report of him, and all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did to the two kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, Shiloh, the king of Heshbon, Og, Bashan, and dwelt in Asher, and our elders and all the inhabitants of our country said to us, 'Take provisions in your hand for the journey, and go to meet them, and say to them, We are your servants. Come now, make a covenant with us. Here is our bread. It was still warm when we took it from our houses as our food for the journey on the day we set forth to come to you, but now, behold, it is dry and moldy. These wineskins were new when we filled them.'" Oh, they're such liars, aren't they? "And behold, they are burst, and these garments and shoes of ours are worn out from a very long journey." So the men partook of their provisions and did not ask direction from the Lord. Big mistake. And Joshua made peace with them and made a covenant with them to let them live, and the leaders of the congregation swore to them. At the end of 3 days after they had made a covenant with them, they heard that they were their neighbors, and they had dwelt among them, and the people of Israel set out and reached their cities on the 3rd day. Now their cities are Gibeon, Separah, Borah, and something I can't pronounce. But the people of Israel did not kill them, because their leaders of the congregation had sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel. Then all the congregation murmured against the leaders. But all the leaders said to all the congregation, "We have sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel, and now we may not touch them. This we will do to them, and let them live, lest wrath be upon us because of the oath we swore to them." And the leaders said to them, "Let them live." So they became hewers of wood and drawers of water for all the congregation, as the leaders had said to them. Well, they got to live, huh? Joshua summoned them, and he said to them, "Why did you deceive us, saying we were very far from you when you dwell among us? Now therefore you are cursed, and some of you shall always be slaves, hewers of wood and drawers of water in the house for the house of my God." They answered Joshua, "Because it was told to our servants for a certainty that the Lord your God commanded his servant Moses to give all the land and to destroy all the inhabitants of the land from before you. So we feared greatly for our lives because of you, and did this thing. And now, behold, we are in your hand. Do as it seems good and right in your sight to do to us." So he did to them, and delivered them out of the hand of the people of Israel, and they did not kill them. But Joshua made them that day hewers of wood and drawers and water for the congregation, and for the altar of the Lord, to continue this day in the place which he should choose. Okay. Well, I don't know. Better slaves than dead, maybe? Okay, the sun stands still. When this person, king of Jerusalem, Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, heard how Joshua had taken Ai and utterly destroyed it, doing to Ai what its king and he had done to Jericho and its king, Now the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were among them. He feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, like the one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all its men were mighty. So this king of Jerusalem said to Hohem, king of Hadron, Pyre, king of Jephthah, king of Dibber, all these different kings, come up to me and help me, and let us smite Gibeon, for it has made peace with Joshua and with the people of Israel. Then the 5 kings of the Amorites and the king of Jerusalem, king of Hebron, king of Jemma, king of Lebanon, king of Lebanon, gathered their forces and went up with all their armies and encamped against Gibeon and made war against it. And the men of Gibeon sent to Joshua at the camp of Gilgal, saying, do not relax your hand from your servants. Come up to us quickly and save us and help us, for all the kings of the Amorites that dwell in the hill country are gathered against us. So Joshua went up from Gilgal, he and all the people of war with him, and the mighty men of valor. And the Lord said to Joshua, do not fear them, for I have given them into your hands. There shall not be a man of them stand before you. So Joshua came up then suddenly, having marched up all night from Gilgal, and the Lord threw them into a panic before Israel, and slew them with great slaughter at Gibeon, and chased them by the way of the ascent to Beth-horon, and smote them as far as Azekah and Mikkedah. And as they fled before Israel, while they were going down the ascent of Beth-horon, the Lord threw down great stones from heaven upon them as far as Azekah, and they died. There were more who died because of the hailstones than the men of Israel killed with the sword. Wow. Then Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day when the Lord gave the Amorites over to the men of Israel, and he said to them in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand thou still at Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Abaron. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the nation took vengeance over their enemies. It is not written in the book of... Is this not written in the book of Vashar? The sun stayed in the midst of heaven and did not hasten to go down for about a whole day. There has been no day like it before or since, when the Lord hearkened to the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. Then Joshua returned, and all Israel with him, to the camp at Gilgal. Now I remember this. The sun stood still for an entire day. And you can trace that missing day all the way up to today, because it's still missing. Okay? All the clocks and stuff and the calendars, you can trace it back to that day when the day stood still, scientifically. Okay? It's a very interesting study. 5 kings defeated. These 5 kings fled and hid themselves at the cave at Makkedah. And it was told Joshua, the 5 kings have been found hidden in the cave at Makkedah. And Joshua said, roll great stones against the mouth of the cave, and set men by it to guard them. But do not stay there yourselves. Pursue your enemies, fall upon their rear, and do not let them enter their cities, for the Lord God has given them to your hand. When Joshua and the men of Israel had finished slaying them with a very great slaughter, until they were wiped out, and when the remnant which remained of them had entered into the fortified cities, all the people returned safe to Joshua in the camp of Makkedah. Not a man moved his tongue against any of the people of Israel. Then Joshua said, open the mouth of the cave and bring those 5 kings out to me from the cave. And they did so, and brought those 5 kings out to him from the cave, the king of Jerusalem, Hebron, Jarmuth, Lachish, Eglon. And when they brought those kings out to Joshua, Joshua summoned all the men of Israel and said to the chiefs of the men of war who had gone with him, come near and put your feet upon the necks of these kings. Then they came near and put their feet upon their necks. And Joshua said to them, do not be afraid or dismayed. Be strong and of good courage, for thus the Lord will do to all your enemies against whom you fight. And afterward Joshua smote them and put them to death. Then he hung them on 5 trees. And they hung upon the trees until evening. But at that time, the time of the going down of the sun, Joshua commanded that they take them down from the trees and threw them into the cave where they had hidden themselves. And they set great stones against the mouth of the cave, which remain to this very day. Remember the old rules: never leave a man hanging after sunset. And Joshua took Makkedah on that day and smote it, and its king with the edge of the sword. He utterly destroyed every person in it. He left none remaining. And he did to the king of Makkedah as he had done to the king of Jericho. Then Joshua passed from Makkedah and all Israel with him to Libnah, and fought against Libnah. And the Lord gave it also, and its king, in the hand of Israel, and he smote it with the edge of the sword, and every person in it. He left none remaining in it. Man. And And he did to its king as he had done to the king of Jericho. And Joshua passed from Libnah to Israel, and all Israel with him to Lachish, and laid siege on it, and assaulted it. And the Lord gave Lachish into the hand of Israel, and they took it on the second day, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and every person in it, as he had done in Libnah. Then Horam, king of Gezer, came up to help Lachish, and Joshua smote him and all his people until he left none remaining. Man. And Joshua passed on all of Israel. And Joshua passed on with all Israel, Lachish, and Eglon, and they laid siege to and assaulted it. And they took it on that day and smote it with the edge of the sword, and every person in it utterly destroyed that day as he had done to Lachish. Man, he sounds like a plague, huh? Then Joshua went up with all Israel from Eglon to Hebron, and they assaulted it and took and smote it with the edge of the sword, and its king and its towns and every person in it. He left none remaining as he had done in Eglon, and utterly destroyed it with every person in it. Then Joshua with all Israel turned back to Debir and assaulted it, and he took with it its king and all its towns, and they smote them with the edge of the sword, and utterly destroyed every person in it, and left none remaining. As he had done to Hebron and Libnah and its king, so he did to Debir and to its king. There's a lot of kingdoms here, huh? So Joshua defeated the whole land, the hill country, and the Neglim, and the lowland, and the slopes, and all their kings. He left none remaining, but utterly destroyed all that breathed, as the Lord God of Israel had commanded. And Joshua defeated them from that place to Gaza, and all the country of Goshen as far as Gibeon. And Joshua took all these kings and their land at one time, because the Lord of Israel fought for Israel. Then Joshua returned, and all Israel with him, to the camp at Gilgal. Okay. The United Kings of Northern Canaan defeated. More wars. Man alive. When Jabin, king of Hazor, heard this, he sent to Jabab, king of Madam, and the king of Shimron, and the king of Achbeth, and to the kings who were in the northern hill country, and the Abath, and the south Chinnereth, and the lowland, and the Neighboreth, and on the west, to the Canaanites in the east and the west, and the Amorites, and the Hittites, and the Pezerites, and the Jebusites, in the hill country, and the Hivites under Hermon, in the land of Mizpah. And they came out with all their troops, a great host in number like the sand that is upon the seashore, with very many horses and chariots. All these kings joined their forces and came and encamped together at the waters of Mermon to fight with Israel. Wow. And the Lord said to Joshua, do not be afraid of them, for tomorrow at this time I will give all of them slain to Israel. You shall hamstring their horses and burn their chariots with fire. Oh, the horses. So Joshua came suddenly upon them with all his people of war by the waters of Mermon, and fell upon them, and the Lord gave them into the hand of Israel, who smote them and chased them as far as a great Sidon. Wow, I'm not pronouncing that. And eastward as far as the valley of Mizpah. And they smote them until they left none remaining. And Joshua did to them as the Lord bade them. He hamstrung their horses and burned their chariots with fire. Chariots of fire. Not. And Joshua turned back at that time to Hazor and smote its king with the sword, for Hazor formerly was the head of all those kingdoms. And they put to the sword all who were in it, utterly destroying them, as there was none left that breathed. And he burned Hazor with fire, and all the cities of those kings, and all their kings Joshua took and smote them with the edge of the sword, utterly destroying them, as Moses the servant of the Lord had commanded. But none of the cities that stood on mounds did Israel burn, except Hazor only, and that Joshua burned. All of the spoil of these cities and the cattle the people of Israel took for their booty. But every man they smote with the edge of the sword until they had destroyed them, and they did not leave any that breathed. As the Lord had commanded Moses his servant, so Moses commanded Joshua, and Joshua did. He left nothing undone of all that the Lord had commanded Moses. Okay, summary of Joshua's conquests. So Joshua took all the land, the hill country, the Negev, and the land of Goshen, and the lowland of Arab, and the hill country of Israel, and its lowland, from Mount Halak that rises towards Seir as far as Baal-Gad, in the valley of Lebron, below Mount Hermon. He took all their kings and smote them and put them to death. Joshua made war a long time with all those kings. There was not a city that made peace with the people of Israel except the Hivites, the inhabitants of Gibeon. They took all in battle, for it was the Lord's doing to harden their hearts, that they should come against Israel in battle, in order that they should utterly be destroyed, and should receive no mercy, but be exterminated, as the Lord commanded Moses. And Joshua came at that time and wiped out the Anakim from the hill country and the Hebron, from Deborah to Anab, from the hill country, from Judah, from all of the hill country of Israel. Joshua utterly destroyed them in their cities. There was none of the Anakim left in the land of the people of Israel. Only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod did some remain. So Joshua took the whole land according to all that the Lord had spoken to Moses, and Joshua gave it for an inheritance to Israel according to their tribal allotments, and the land had rest from war. Finally. Wow. Wild, huh? That is a lot of warring and a lot of wars and killing and millions and killing. God's will. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but that's God's will. So there you have it. That's day 84 in our part 2 of our Through the Bible in 1 Year series. We'll keep doing it till we finish. We will finish on New Year's Eve of this year. All right? And the end of Revelation, I suppose. But until next time, keep reading. Catch up on any you may have missed. You want to see again the whole Bible in a year. So until next time, keep reading. See you later.